Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
How's it going out there? It's Wednesday, November 13th, and you're listening to the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where Frank Curzio normally breaks down and tells you what's really moving these markets. But have no fear, Frank is not missing. He's just traveling. So I, Daniel Creech, normally co-host here often on Wall Street Unplugged, and behind the mic today, holding the fort down. Yes, Frank once again has left the entire company in my hands. Just kidding. And even if he did, it's only for the next 30 minutes or so. Thank you for tuning in. You've made a great decision. And I want to break down a couple of things here. First of all, the melt up and the melt down continues. Markets are melting upward or near all-time highs, especially Bitcoin. Get to that in just a moment. But the melt down also continues. And you got to learn to laugh at this, people. Humor is such great medicine. Laughter is such a great medicine. And if you're unhappy with the election results, I understand. I have been there. It wasn't very long ago when we saw a big blue wave sweep across everything. And if it weren't for West Virginia, what is it, Joe Manchin, who held the line and cut some spending or held off on some passing spending bills, not cut spending. But anyway, the left-wing media and the mainstream media continues its meltdown over Trump's victory, what looks like to hold the House as well as in addition to the presidency and the Senate. But wow, the social media, and I try to take everything with a grain of salt when you come across social media and such like that. But you talk about two polar ends of the spectrum here. And I was hoping it was a joke, but did anybody see this social media post, the viral couple that is getting divorced because the husband voted for Trump and the woman, the wife obviously didn't. And then she was on video saying that divorce wasn't enough and she was going to sleep with his friends and all that kind of stuff. In addition to that craziness and silliness, we have the 4B movement. And I have to confess here, I wasn't aware of what this 4B movement is. And quick intranet and Google machine search, it's evidently from South Korea. And it translates, at least it does have 4 words that start with a B, as the name would imply. I'm not even going to bother trying to butcher these or pronounce these, but it translates to no marriage, no childbirth, no dating, and no sex with men. Now, I don't know. I didn't make these rules. This is fairly new to me. I don't know about sex with other genders or people. Some people think that's up for debate. I don't know what this says about gay or lesbians. Not my bag, baby. So we'll just have to figure this out. But a subscriber made me laugh out loud. And you know, we've all been guilty of this. Sometimes you text back LOL. LOL means laughing out loud for you, those of you not in the texting hip circles. But we've all texted it back and probably not literally laughed out loud. But I got an email from a subscriber about this 4B movement and was wondering if Black & Decker sales for their batteries were going to go higher. Now, we try to talk stocks here, so if you want to look at Stanley Black & Decker, it's SWK. It's well off its highs here recently. It was over $110 in October. It's sold off under $90. Maybe this do-it-yourself, go-at-it-alone movement of will lead to an increase in batteries and or we'll look for publicly traded adult stores, I guess, and accessories. But anyway, see, we cover everything here on Wall Street Unplugged. 4B, even from an economic perspective, and divorce. Hopefully, if you did vote separately from your spouse, you can kiss up and make up. You can move along and realize that maybe there are bigger things to continue worrying about. All right, enough of that silliness. What I want to talk about on switching gears to something serious here is, even though markets, and let's do a quick market check, it is just after 10:30. So markets are holding in there, but we've had an excellent post-election rally, near all-time highs in Bitcoin and markets. And I want to explain something here because, honestly, I don't think anybody is bullish enough. And I want you to understand something with me because I'm not, Frank likes to talk about following the data, interpreting the data, not getting hung up on emotions, but, sifting through the BS and figuring out the reality of the situation. And whether or not you're happy with the elections, whether, I got some text, your guy won or your guy lost or this part, blah, blah, blah. The opportunity in front of us as a government, as a nation, as an economy is probably one of the fattest pitches, slowest pitches we've had in a long time. And I'm not saying that just because, quote unquote, Republicans versus Democrats won. I'm saying that because you have a paradigm shift in the thinking about government for the first time, in my opinion, a very, very long time. And what I mean by that is you now have, in some ways, it's kind of an odd blessing that Trump didn't get elected 4 years ago, because he has to have learned so much more about the system, the inner workings of politics and such like that. And now the real opportunity for change is here. And it's easy to say what you're going to do, and it's easy to know what steps that need to be made, but obviously it's very difficult to get it done. There is a tremendous amount of pressure. There's a tremendous amount of money and teams and, friendships and backstabbing and all that in politics. But what's wild here is that, and just look at the way the media is taking cabinet positions and the way Trump's team is forming and how they're reacting. And they keep talking about, oh, well, this guy doesn't have any government experience, or who is this guy and what did he do? And it's just Trump filling a bunch of his friends and whoever pats him on the back. Well, everybody's going to obviously appoint like-minded or like-thinking-minded individuals. You do want some people that push you back and, keep you grounded. But if we actually reform government, and let's get to the Department of Government Efficiency, and led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if this is actually going to take hold, so this may not happen, but let me explain why nobody is bullish enough. If you would, just let's go down this rabbit hole with me and just let's dream about some common sense actually getting implemented. And what we would have here is, according to the latest, some of October and latest economic, I was on Zero Hedge and looking at different things. There's over 23 million jobs in the government. That is a huge amount. Remember, it was one of the largest increases in government workers back in the September that came out in October jobs release, if memory serves me correct, and it jumped by a couple million. But Vivek was talking on a podcast about how just cutting and doing mass layoffs on the government side. And listen, I'm not cheering anybody to just get fired. I'm not hoping anybody is out of a job. What I am explaining, though, is that there is no way to misunderstand that there is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of waste in our government and government spending. And that's just kind of the accepted norm now. Yeah, well, politicians lie. Yeah, we blow money on this. Yeah, we print money and do this stuff, and it's all silly. And everybody just kind of takes that and goes with it. And you know what causes people to question that, or to kind of stop and say, hey, isn't there a better way, or can we change? It's the economy slowing down. It's inflation rising like crazy. It's people stressing out about their incomes not keeping up with the price of goods and services. And so now we had that COVID inflation hit because we printed money and handed it into the hands of people in the economy. And now we have such massive debts and deficits that interest rates are feeling and getting squeezed because of the interest and debt. And those are starting to get a lot of attention, as they should. But here's the thing. If you actually send the signal and start cutting government jobs and cutting government waste, there would be a massive re-rating across interest rates, across bond markets, across growth rates, across market multiples. It would be absolutely phenomenal. And you do have to kind of throw out, history often rhymes. It may not exactly repeat itself. And listen, I'm not just saying, hey, go all in and it doesn't matter about valuations and such. I'm simply saying, if we send the signal to actually cut government spending, just give the hint that we are going to get our financial house in order just a flying Florida bit, just a tiny Florida bit, it would absolutely be massive and it would be contagious. And it would cause this higher growth mindset and this unleashing of entrepreneurism and exceptionalism and hard work and the emotion of this I can attitude. And it would just be absolutely incredible. So, and it's not difficult. Listen, it may not get implemented. We're going to have to wait and see. We'll hold them accountable. I love what Musk and Vivek are talking about. I love a lot of the appointments that are happening only because they're not government bureaucrats. They're not career politicians, and they have different ideas. And if there's one takeaway, I think there is, if there's one takeaway to really notice or to not ignore from the results of the election, is that people want to change. They thought that whatever direction we were heading in isn't the best, so let's change it up. And how do you change it up? You appoint people from outside circles, but like-minded and can just be a conservative to approach of business. Not conservative in the sense of right versus left, conservative common sense in the terms of business and thinking alike. So what we have here is a re-rating in multiples. So right now, you could say, well, the markets are expensive according to its 5 and 10 years, but it's all about growth. And from here until Inauguration Day on January 20th, there should be a lot more good news and a lot more excitement about who's going to be appointed, what kind of policies are going to be implemented and such. And we'll talk more about this as the podcasts unfold when Frank gets back. But email me your thoughts. What do you think would happen if the world was on notice that the United States was actually going to reform or cut spending and focus on actual common sense growth? Daniel at CurzioResearch.com. I think that it could absolutely unleash a bull market not seen in generations. And I do think that it is one of the most exciting times because for the first time in a long time, you can actually implement big major changes at the government level, and we'll see if that happens. Okay. Now, speaking of not being bullish enough and some big ticket items here, I want to talk about Bitcoin in detail just for a moment because let's do a quick price check on the old Bitcoin. And I will get to a couple stocks here. Bitcoin is just under 92,000, so it's approaching another all-time high. Of course, that's what it does. But speaking of not being bullish enough, I think that, so you have this one opportunity on the government side and cutting spending and getting serious about that. With the people that are elected, the political power, of crypto right now is just absolutely impressive. I mean, it's basically like the Incredible Hulk of comic characters right now. Bitcoin, wouldn't the Hulk, you've seen the trailer for a new Hulk that looks like he's red, but wouldn't like a golden Hulk be cool, like a golden Bitcoin Incredible Hulk? Just smashing everything, taking out price targets, saving the financial world according to some. But Cynthia Lummis, the senator out of Wyoming, has retweeted this. She's never been more bullish about Bitcoin, and she's on record from tweets, and again, take everything with salt, but saying that in the first 100 days, we could get some serious legislation passed around Bitcoin, even a Bitcoin reserve. And if the United States does a Bitcoin reserve, strategic reserve, and they pledge to buy any amount, forget the amount for a moment, forget the dollar amount or the Bitcoin amount, the very idea, just like cutting government spending and getting your house in order, the very idea of getting back to sound money, or at least approaching the concept of some value or sound money with Bitcoin from a government perspective is, man, I'm trying not to just be the biggest Florida cheerleader in the world, but that, to me, I mean, what are some of the biggest financial events we've had in our history? We've had, and I know there's several, but let's just start 1913 with the Federal Reserve. And then you have August of 71 when Nixon cut the gold standard off. I honestly think that a Bitcoin strategic reserve, the idea of that, is as big as the 1913 Reserve Act or Nixon cutting the gold standard in 71, because it would essentially re-rate the way people view and think about money. And I've often said one of the best things, if not the best thing about Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the conversation it leads to, the questions that it causes people to ask when explaining it, when researching it, and when talking about it. Well, what is money, and where does money come from, and how is it used, and why is this used, and why is that, and what's the value there, and blah, 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 blah. Because if the United States does this or hints at it, and we start holding Bitcoin like MicroStrategy has, and you start to see this constant demand, you got to remember the fundamentals of Bitcoin aren't changing. It's still the same old story, and that is a Florida beautiful thing. It's still a fixed amount. It's still divisible. It's transferable. It's transportable. It's sound. It's not controlled by a central entity. It checks off all of these boxes. And now if you have this momentum and this stamp of approval between the United States government, that is just absolutely, and price targets, if you start thinking in those terms, and you've heard the expression, when the U.S. sneezes, the world catches a cold. We are a global, intertwined economy, whether you like it or not. And that is okay. And it is true, if we sneeze, the world catches a cold, and we are impacted by other things globally as well. But if the United States government says we're going to hold some of this Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, what the hell else do you think everybody else is going to do? I mean, and then we get to gold. Gold's selling off. Why is gold selling off? Well, I think gold is selling off a little bit because gold is a great chaos hedge. And believe it or not, despite what the media tells you, about Trump being the second coming of Hitler, people are obviously looking for less chaos in the future in the markets, which is why that commodity is going down. And the way that corporations and governments could start allocating to Bitcoin would be a paradigm shift is not even the way to explain it. It would be an unbelievable breakthrough, and price targets of 150 to 250 to 500,000 or more. Michael Saylor's at that 13 million, whatever time zone. All that stuff comes into play because, again, you have a fixed amount and you have all these sound principles, and it would just really be off to the races. It's not going to go up in a straight line, but you want to have that mindset, or at least be thinking through this opportunity as it unfolds, because it is we have such a tremendous opportunity to make real sound fiscal change, and it could unleash American exceptionalism and global growth for decades to come. I'm telling you, watch the market start tanking right now. But with the momentum and the ideas that could be implemented over the next coming months and year or two, combined with this animal spirits roaring, and you have this freedom to go out and work towards whatever you want. You have an easing regulatory environment that is business friendly versus anti-business in general. You can have lower taxes. You can have more leaning towards sounder money and these ideas of building strategic reserves. And it would just absolutely throw everything out that you've read about in the past. That new amount of growth rate and re-rating on both market valuations, bonds and yields and interest rates would be absolutely incredible. And what they ought to do, they being the Trump team, is get ahead of this. And here's what they need to focus on, in my opinion. If they were calling Daniel Creech to cabinet meetings or the Oval Office to get my opinion, here's what I would explain. If Vivek is successful and starts cutting government spending, you have to get out in front of this and explain to the American people that there is a major difference if the unemployment rate goes from, say, 4% to 6%, and if that 50% increase from 4 to 6, if that is because the private sector is losing jobs, that is a huge difference versus if the government sector is losing jobs. And again, I'm not gleeful over anybody losing their job. But what would happen is they would get severances, they would get paid, because governments are always looking down the long term. You know how these politicians say, well, if we cut $1 here in 25 years, it'll reduce the deficit by X amount. Anybody that's going to get let go is going to get severance, is going to get paid, is going to get unemployment, and then they get to take those talents and they get to compete in the private sector. They get to pursue other opportunities and dreams, and they get to add to the working pile in the capitalist system, not take it away. Not that they're greedy or wrong or bad. It's just the balances of government versus private sector. And I'm not anti-government, so hold your emails. Actually, send them to me. It's beneficial to you to get it off your chest. Daniel at CurzioResearch.com. And just know that every mainstream media outlet is not going to just suddenly fall in love with Trump. They're not going to agree that people want to change and go along with change. They're going to continue fighting and standing for what they believe in, and whether or not that's crazy to someone else or not, and to each their own. But you're going to start seeing the negative headlines pour out about everything from unemployment to if GDP slows down to these tariff talks and how this could impact the little guy and the Main Street economy, and it's just for fat cats on Wall Street and all this. But the Trump team can get ahead of this and explain if unemployment goes up because of the government cutting and getting its financial house in order, that is actually positive. And it would be a short-term pain. It's just ripping the Band-Aid off all at once. And in a handful of months, as you would see these talented individuals go out into the private sector and or start jobs, whatever, that will actually be a huge benefit. And it's all about growth. You know, we have silly debts and deficits. Trump is not going to stop that right away. He should really cut the deficits and spending. We'll see what he does in the short term. But remember, for as much excitement as there is right now and markets melting up, it's not going to continue for a straight line, but you want to have the mindset of buying pullbacks. You want to look at the biggest spaces that are offering the best risk reward. And right now, that is hands down in the crypto space. So check out Crypto Intelligence at CurzioResearch.com. Frank is doing absolutely great. He was excited about a Trump election being pro-crypto, not just because Republican, Democrat. He was looking at it from an economic standpoint, from the crypto space. That is definitely coming to fruition. We've seen a lot of altcoins as well as Bitcoin and Ethereum really rally. So check out Curzio Research for that. Now, amidst everything going on, what I've just been talking about for the last 21 minutes, we also have some earnings going on. We have the CPI numbers out this morning. I may wait and hold those. Those were in line. Markets are holding up okay. We have the producer price index coming out tomorrow. And I also want to talk about a particular stock that's been on fire lately, and I'm talking on fire. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor.
Hey guys, today's podcast is being sponsored by Bridge Tower. It's a real estate investment company, an incredible track record and model of building, developing, acquiring single family for rent and build to rent homes. So market within the housing industry, it's seeing incredible demand as home affordability is out of reach for most American families. So what do they have to do? They have to rent. So now Bridge Tower, and this is the very first time they're doing this, guys. They're opening up a new fund for retail investors that are accredited. So you don't have to have $5 million in a BlackRock account or Goldman Sachs to get into this fund. These guys are very, very credible. I know them personally. Very strong returns. Know this market inside and out. I mean, companies like KKR, Walton Street Capital, they're not going to partner with everybody. They did partner with these guys. So this new fund comes with really, really good terms for those seeking growth and income. And yes, I vetted it. And yes, I'm investing in it. So you're going to get incredible yield with the opportunity for capital appreciation. So this is a great, great name. It's run by my friend George Wong, who's a co-founder of this fund. Incredibly brilliant guy, senior analyst at Sabretooth Capital and billion-dollar Tiger Hedge Fund. I mean, this guy's been everywhere. He'll hop on a call with you to answer any questions you have. So here's the website. You see you scrolling through it. Or you can call him direct at 469-963-2550. And my friend George will get on the phone with you personally.
That's Bridge Tower Investments. If you want more information, go to bridgetowerinvest.com. That's bridgetowerinvest.com. All right. Turning to stocks here. This is a Wall Street Unplugged podcast. We're going to talk about some stocks here. Cava Group absolutely blew out the numbers on its earnings today. You can see this FinViz chart is showing up about 11%, down off of its highs. But this company is just astounding in the fact they're Mediterranean food dishes. And shout out to a couple of my friends at a local cigar bar. They've been talking about this for, oh man, I don't even know what price they first told me about it, but it has just been on an absolute tear. I know it was under 100 by the first time, well under 100 when they told me that. So shout out and kudos to them. The impressive thing here in the food industry businesses, we've talked about the Starbucks and Chipotle thing, but it may seem like silliness or too much common sense or a too simple strategy, but providing a great product and taking care of your customers is a winning strategy. And again, look at this chart here for more proof. Now, this is a great lesson in valuations because as we scroll down on FinViz, this is trading at a forward price to earnings multiple, a forward PE of 281.91. Holy hell, who in the world would be buying this stock up here? Well, as Frank likes to educate you, and I've even learned this over the last couple of years and investing and taking my lumps, you don't want to just focus on PE and valuations. You want to focus on the growth. And the kicker here, the real secret sauce, pun intended, I don't know what you eat in the Mediterranean cuisine, maybe no secret sauces. But what's really astounding here is the same stores or comparables that they're putting up, and they keep raising those. So they were saying, hey, we're going to see same store growth or restaurant growth of say 12 to 14%, and they bump that to over 15, 16, 17%. It's just absolutely incredible. It's the same situation that we've seen in other restaurants. And you look at like Shake Shack is a food stock that's been working. Cava has been working. And then you look at like your Jack in the Boxes, not so much has been working. So it is about quality. It is about giving your customer. So not only are they seeing same store traffic increase, but they're able to raise prices a little bit. So you got customers coming back and willing to pay more. That's a hell of a recipe. If you've been in this, I'm not, I was out of this. I wish I was in it. I just should have listened to those guys. But kudos to them. And like I said, if you're in this making money, absolutely enjoy it. I wouldn't buy it right here if I was just starting a position, but that's okay. I've been wrong on this anyway. But wow. Kudos to the Cava Group and its management team for putting up incredible, incredible numbers. All right, let's see here. Last thing I want to talk about with the back to the Bitcoin for just a moment, because there is tremendous demand from not only corporations. So Frank and I talked about MicroStrategy going to buy over $40 billion over the next few years in Bitcoin. And then if the strategic reserve happens at the United States and they're talking about buying 1 million Bitcoin or something over a number of years, the amount of demand on this fixed asset is going to just cause the price to absolutely go bonkers. And then you have the halving every 4 years, and it's just gaining so much momentum that you want to definitely be, and I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow on Wall Street Unplugged Premium podcast. But Mara Holdings, Bitcoin miner, they reported earnings. They're down about 4% right now. They reported earnings last night. I'll go into this in more detail tomorrow, but what I want to focus on here is just the stock reaction and the trading reaction. So they missed earnings. The stock initially sold off 6-8%. Along with the Bitcoin rally, it was actually higher earlier today. Now it's selling back off. But something to look for about how many companies are going to start adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. These guys are holding some, like the MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy holds Bitcoin as well. But I just think, I know most of you guys, listeners out there to Curzio Research, to Wall Street Unplugged, to any of our newsletters, I'm sure all of you have some exposure to Bitcoin, but if you don't, do not miss out. Do not make the mistake of thinking you missed this move, that it's over, that every time I buy something, it's just going to go down. You almost feel like the market's waiting on you to act, and then it's just going to reverse and stomp you. I've been there. I've felt like that, but don't get stuck in that rut. You want to understand that, yes, there's a lot of good things that could be implemented that could really change the course of history and opening up just an unbelievable growth spirits going forward from an economic standpoint that could be so robust and lift, rising tide lifts all boats, and it could just absolutely be incredible. We'll see. Don't get over your skis, but as of now, use the opportunities that we have. Use any pullbacks to add to your exposure. Look at the Bitcoin minings, look at your Galaxy Digitals and asset managers, look at your ETFs, look at your spot Bitcoin and all that. But there is just a tremendous wave of optimism and excitement, and you want to be a part of that. All right, just under 30 minutes. See, I told you when Frank leaves me in charge, there is nothing to worry about, nothing to fear but fear itself. I didn't even get into global warming and start pissing everybody off and get people unsubscribing. So I'm learning, everybody. Actually, I'm just saving that. I'll talk more about oil and gas. In fact, I want to tease something here because I don't remember when it first came across my desk, but I was going through an oil and gas company, and I wonder if this particular company foreshadowed Donald Trump's win in the election because they raised their dividend. I'll share the stock tomorrow if I remember. On Wall Street Unplugged Premium, a whole $10 a month, everybody. Go to Curzio Research and sign up. But there is a company, and I'll ask Frank this tomorrow about foreshadowing and such, because an oil and gas company raised its dividend in the past, not too long ago. And then this is what caught me. They came out and they said that we are going to run our business in a sense of rewarding shareholders and efficiency. And so they raised their dividend to shareholders. That's impressive. You want to say, all right, yeah, you can do that. The kicker here, This CEO said, "We are prepared and to be profitable at sub $50 oil." Now this, I believe, when oil was still in the 70s, it's in the high 60s now. And I'm going to give my opinion on oil and gas more tomorrow and in upcoming newsletters and such. But I would not sell oil and gas just because Trump is going to be a baby drill president. And notice how natural gas has popped recently. You want to be in the biggest trends. And so this company foreshadowed Trump's and lower prices. We'll see about the 50 handle. But it is interesting to see that looking back. We'll talk about more oil and gas stocks, why it still proposes or why you still have a lot of opportunities there. And the biggest holdings or the biggest opportunities right now are still with AI and with the power generation, with Bitcoin that can tie in together, and then with oil and gas and energy, as well as always finding great management teams that put great products and take care of their customers. All right, everybody. Hey, closing in on 30 minutes. Love me, hate me, don't ignore me. Daniel at CurzioResearch.com. Daniel at CurzioResearch.com. Frank Curzio, the one and only, will be back tomorrow for Wall Street Unplugged. Until then, cheers.
Love this episode of Wall Street Unplugged? I think you'll really love Wall Street Unplugged Premium. The Wall Street Unplugged Premium is my members-only podcast where I dive even deeper into this week's events. Well, I'll do even more than tell you what's moving these markets. I'll tell you specifically what moves you can make today. So this is going to be about trading. Put big money in your pocket right away due to the inconsistencies I see daily in the market. I'm talking about specific investment ideas I'm recommending and tracking each week that I believe will be impacted directly by everything I just talked about today. Plus, you're going to get the chance to go even further down the rabbit hole with me and my co-host, who's Daniel Creech, as we discuss which of these week's trends could turn into massive windfalls. Could the big trends that we see lurking on the horizon, also the news we're picking up from our network of insiders, which has gotten bigger and bigger thanks to you and so many people listening to this podcast in over 100 countries. And you get a chance to talk to me directly in my special Ask Me Anything Q&A session. All of that and a lot more, like premium interviews with world leaders in finance, technology, industry, and politics. This is all part of Wall Street Unplugged Premium. And becoming a member is super simple and super cheap. So head on over to WSUoffer.com to check it all out. Sign up today and you won't miss a thing. That's WSUoffer.com.
Wall Street Unplugged is produced by Curzio Research, one of the most respected financial media companies in the industry. The information presented on Wall Street Unplugged is the opinion of its host and guests. You should not base your investment decisions solely on this broadcast. Remember, it's your money and your responsibility.